You should not have gone to the party. And you should not have spiked her drink. Okay? You will stand up. When you're asking questions on direct and cross-examination, you will go up and talk to the witness. You will look at your jury. You will look at your judge. Yes.
If we have paper, do we just hold it while we're
You're going to have to hold it if you have paper.
Okay, so I didn't know if we were like
That's fine. Are we okay? Okay. I am so proud of you, and you can do this.
I'm so nervous, and I can't do this.
Yes, you can.
I have to sit here, yeah, and I'm nervous. I'm nervous for you.
Hey, Hunter, where's our water?
thank you.
I'm locking the door.
Hunter, if you don't give him some water, he's gonna drink your
Yeah, can Hunter get some water?
Hunter has no water. He did not like us. Okay, kiddos. We're ready to go.
All rise. The Court of the Second Judicial Circuit Criminal Division is now in session. The Honorable Judge Iverson presiding.
Everyone but the jury, please be seated. Mr. Morgan, please swear in the jury.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to affirm that you will judge this case, truly listen to this case, and render a true verdict and a fair sentence as to this defendant? You may be seated.
Members of the jury, your duty today will be to determine whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty based on only the facts and evidence provided in this case. The prosecution has the burden of proving the guilt of the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt. This burden remains on the prosecution through the trial. The prosecution must prove that the crime was committed, and that the defendant is the person who committed the crime. However, if you are not satisfied to the defendant's guilt to that extent, then reasonable doubt exists and the defendant must be found not guilty. This is a criminal case brought by the state of Oregon charging the defendant, Bobby Dosa, with causing another person to ingest a controlled substance, assault in the 4th degree, and harassment. The plaintiff, Addison Anderson, claims that the defendant did unlawfully, on or about December 5th, 2014, cause the plaintiff to ingest Rohypnol, a controlled substance. The plaintiff claims that the defendant also caused physical harm and harassed the plaintiff by drawing offensive cartoons on her face without her permission. Bobby Dosa, the defendant, is pleading not guilty on all charges. Mr. Morgan, please swear. Is the prosecution ready? Is the defense ready? Prosecution, you may begin your opening statements.
This is a case about a girl to whom a basketball court is a place of joy and excitement. However, because of recent events, because of another's appallingly inconsiderate actions, new connotations of humiliation and distress have been tied to this comforting location. May it please the court, my name is Willie Franklin, and I will be giving the opening statement for my client, State of Oregon. This case begins at a varsity basketball championship game between Hamilton and Borough High School on in 2013. During the last few seconds of the game, when Hamilton was down by 2 points, Addison Anderson, or Addie, who some would say is their star player, made a three-pointer. This won Hamilton High School the game and Addie an acceptance into Oregon State. While it is expected for students of Borough to be disappointed by this loss to their rivals, one of them took the defeat a little too far. The next year, Hamilton's first game of the season, which was the first game of Addie's senior year, was against none other than the Borough Raiders. The night before the game, Addie was invited to a party that both Borough and Hamilton students were invited to, which was intended to be an enjoyable event and possibly arouse some school spirit over debate over which school is home to the better team. However, the defendant took his school pride too far and poured rohypnol, a controlled substance, into her drink. While she was unconscious, the defendant proceeded to draw a rose mascot on Addie's cheek, post a picture of it on Facebook, and humiliated her even further by drawing an impermanent marker, so she had to wear it during that night's game. We will call 3 witnesses to display that the defendant is unmistakably responsible for these recent events. Our first witness will be Addison Anderson, who will describe the events that happened to her on the night of December 5th and the suspicious behaviors of the defendant leading up to being drunk. This testimony will emphasize how horrifying the circumstances were for Addie and that the defendant must be held accountable for his actions. Next, we will call on Dakota Sherman, who will explain the defendant's outrageous reaction to the championship game in 2013, along with how on the night of the party he mentioned that Addie was going to be in for quite a surprise. The third and final witness we will call on is Leslie Chen, a computer forensic investigator with the Rowe Police Department, who will elaborate on her findings, which include a draft email on the defendant's smartphone, their search history, and a bottle of rohypnol found at the scene of the crime. Through these witnesses, we will show that the defendant is guilty of assault in the 4th degree, allegedly causing another person to ingest a controlled substance, and harassment. At the end of the trial, we are certain that you will find Bobby Dosa guilty on all counts. Thank you.
Thank you, prosecution. Defense, you may begin your opening statements.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Sam Burnell, and I will give the opening statement for my client, Bobby Dosa. This case involves a school rivalry between Hamilton High School and Borough High School, the planting of a controlled substance, and the drawing of the rival school mascot on Miss Anderson's cheek. Today, we will explore why our client was wrongfully accused of causing someone to ingest a controlled substance, assault of the 4th degree, and harassment. We will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Bobby Dosa was not present at the time the drug was slipped into her drink. Bobby is the president of the school pep squad, so why would he want to risk his morality just to win a basketball game? You will hear from 3 of our witnesses that support our claim that Bobby is innocent. Our first witness is Bobby Dosa, who will explain his side of the story. Our second witness is Lane Jurors, an ER physician who discovered the drug was ingested from 9 o'clock p.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. after Bobby left the party. Finally, you will hear from Emerson Kanan, who told us that she saw Bobby leave the party before Miss Anderson set her drink down for someone to put a drug in it. If you connect the dots, Miss Anderson went to a party alone with no adults in an empty house and just teenagers. Miss Anderson should have never gone to the party if she knew it could be dangerous. Besides, the biggest game of her season is the next day. Why would she be so reckless to go to a party? These accounts of the night of December 5th will clearly show you that Bobby Dosa is innocent, and it would be impossible for Bobby to plant a controlled substance, cause physical harm, and embarrass her on her social media. By the end of this trial, we request you declare the defendant, Bobby Dosa, not guilty on all counts.
Thank you, defense. Prosecution, you may call your first witness. Will the witness please stand to be sworn in by the bailiff?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may begin your question.
What school do you attend? I attend Hamilton High School. Where were you on the night of December 5th, 2014? I was at Dakota Sherman's party. It was the night before a big rival basketball game. And what school does she go to? Borough High School. Who was at the party that night? students from both schools. However, the students from Borough outnumbered the students from Hamilton.
What did you do when you first arrived?
I got a cup of soda and sat down with my friends.
Did you have any interactions with students from the other school?
Yes.
Who in particular do you remember?
Aside from Dakota, I remember Bobby.
What happened with Bobby?
He tauntingly asked me to show my basketball skills, so I agreed and set my cup down before going outside.
What happened after you played basketball?
I came back in and took a drink of my cup.
Do you remember where you put your cup?
I put it in the corner behind the couch so it wouldn't get mixed up with anyone else's drinks.
Did anything else of significance happen at that party?
I remember starting to feel dizzy and disoriented, and then the next thing I knew, it was Saturday morning and I had a Raiders logo drawn on my face.
How did this affect your performance at that evening's game?
I was still dizzy and disoriented, and we ended up losing the basketball game.
Did you find out what caused this dizziness and loss of consciousness?
I had my suspicions, but it wasn't until we went to the hospital and got the toxicology test done that I knew I'd been drugged with rohypnol.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
The defense may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Where do you remember putting your drink before you went outside?
I put it in the corner so it wouldn't get mixed up with anyone else's.
About what time do you remember coming in from outside?
I know it was around 9:45.
Do you remember Mrs. Sherman taking your drink and cleaning it up after it spilled?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You may step down. Prosecution, you may call your second witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We call it within Dakota Sherman.
Will the witness please stand to be sworn in by the bailiff?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may begin the questioning.
How well do you know Bobby?
I thought I knew him well until he got voted the pep squad president and he started ignoring me.
Where was Bobby while Addie was playing basketball outside?
While everyone else walked outside, I saw Bobby walk quickly back inside.
Why did you throw the party?
I threw it because I wanted to show people that I would be the better pep squad president and that they voted wrong.
What did you do after Addie played?
I went back inside and that's when I saw Addie looking queasy.
Can you tell me who on the Facebook page or the picture was posted on?
Bobby, he's the only one with access and knows the password.
What did Bobby say to you when he was inside?
I asked him if he was okay and he said it will be.
Where did he go after that?
I thought he left the party, but later I still saw his car parked outside.
Where do you think the rohypnol came from?
My mom when she went on her trip to Mexico.
Does that mean that someone close to you had access to it?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. That will be all.
The defense may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
How would you describe Bobby's personality?
I thought he was nice until he started ignoring me. He became very rude to me. So.
Do you have anything against Miss Anderson?
No, I didn't know her well. I just knew she was the best basketball player.
How much rohypnol was left in the bottle the night of December 5th?
There was less than before when I checked.
Where did you go after entering the party?
I went back. I started talking to my friends, and I saw Addie looking queasy.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
You may step down. Prosecution, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls in lesson 2.
Will the witness please stand to be sworn in by the bailiff.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may begin your questioning.
May you introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Leslie Chen. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a computer forensic investigator for the Road Police Department.
When did you first become involved in this case?
I first became involved in this case when I was asked to assist in searching Dakota Sherman's residence for Rohypnol, and as well as arresting Bobby Dosa.
What did you discover at Dakota's residence?
We discovered a bottle of Rohypnol.
Were there any fingerprints on that bottle of Rohypnol?
Yes.
Do those fingerprints match those displayed in Exhibit 2?
Yes, they do. They match the defendant's right thumb and right index finger.
Did you recover anything from the defendant's house?
Yes, we recovered a smartphone.
Was there any suspicious content on said smartphone?
Yes, there was a draft email that was sent or deleted an hour after Addie Anderson was reported losing consciousness.
Does that email match that displayed in Exhibit 3?
Yes, it does.
Did you discover any other suspicious items?
Yes, we recovered a Google search for Rohypnol effects short-long term.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
The defense may cross-examine the witness.
What made you assume that Bobby's email had to do with Miss Anderson?
It was deleted less than an hour after Addie was reported losing consciousness.
Were the fingerprints on the bottle left or right-handed?
They were right-handed.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
You may step down. Defense, you may call your first witness. Will the witness please stand to be sworn in by the bailiff?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may begin the questioning.
Isn't it true that you took your prep squad you take your prep squad president job very seriously?
Yes, I do.
How would you describe Miss Sherman, her personality?
Well, we really used to be friends, but after I was elected as the pep squad president, she seemed to get a little jealous of me because she wanted my role.
Did you ever physically pick up a bottle of Rohypnol before December 5th?
I recall picking me up at her house one time when I was there.
When did you arrive at the party the night of December 5th?
I don't recall an exact time, but I know I was one of the first ones there.
What did you do when you first entered the party?
Well, just kind of hung out.
How would you describe Miss Sherman's state when you encountered her before you left the party?
She seemed fine.
What is the password of the borough social media account?
As of right now, it's Raiders in all caps.
Is there anyone else that you have told the password to?
I haven't told anyone, but someone might have found out.
Isn't it true that you left the party about 8:45 that night?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
The prosecution may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. You're the president of the pep squad for Borough High School, is that correct?
Yes.
So would you say that the victory of your team is more important to you than most?
Yes.
Were you at Dakota Sherman's house the night of December 5th, 2014?
Yeah.
Do you remember Addie being there?
Hmm?
Did you interact with her at all?
Well, I asked her to go outside and show her basketball skills, but that's the only time.
And when did you leave the party?
Around 8:45.
Is it true that you've drawn the Raiders logo, similar to the one displayed in Exhibit 1 before, on your friends' faces?
A couple of years back for a basketball game.
If, as you claim, you didn't drug Addie or draw the Raiders logo on her face despite your previous experience,
How exactly did your fingerprints end up on the bottle at the scene of the crime?
Well, I've gone to Dakota's house a couple times, and he showed me the bottle once. I think I touched it then.
And what were the contents of the draft email you wrote on December 6th?
It was about a couple years back, and we were drawing logo raiders on each other's faces, and yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questioning.
You may step down. Defense, you may call your second witness.
We call to the stand Lane Morris.
Will the witness please stand to be sworn in by the bailiff?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may begin the questioning.
Thank you, Your Honor. What state do you remember Miss Anderson being in when she first arrived in the hospital that morning?
She was a little drowsy, but she seemed in perfectly fine condition.
What test did you do on Miss Anderson while she stayed in the hospital?
A drug and urine test.
How long does it take for Rohypnol to take effect?
About 8 hours.
What are the effects of Rohypnol?
I think it's drowsiness and in high enough dosage is death.
How much is a single dose of Rohypnol? Isn't it true that Miss Anderson consumed the Rohypnol between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock that night?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
The prosecution may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Isn't it true that although you stated it can sometimes take as much as 8 hours for Rohypnol to take effect, that it usually takes between 1 hour and 1.5 hours?
Yes.
And isn't it also true that that Addison Anderson may have consumed the Rohypnol anywhere between 8:30 and 10:15?
Yes, that is possible.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
You may step down. The defense may call its third witness.
We call Emerson Kane to the stands.
Would the witness please stand to be sworn in by the bailiff?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may begin the questioning.
Thank you, Your Honor. Isn't it true that Miss Sherman had bad blood with Bobby because of his post as the president of the PEP squad?
Yes, that is true.
Foundation.
Sustained. Please ask your next question.
Has Bobby always been a kind and considerate person?
Yes, ever since I have started school, he has been a kind person, defending me anytime anyone would mess with me for living on the Hamilton side of town, yes.
When did you arrive at the party?
I arrived at the party at 8:30, or 8 o'clock.
Isn't it true that Miss Sherman was egging Bobby on at the party when he was talking to Miss Sherman, or Miss Anderson?
Yes, that is true.
Isn't it true that you saw someone in a red and black barreau jacket on the staircase?
Yes.
At this time, where do you remember seeing Bobby?
He was outside before I had came in. Yeah.
Isn't it true that you saw Dakota lingering by the couch when Miss Anderson set her drink down?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
The prosecution may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Isn't it true that you're jealous of Addie's position on the varsity basketball team?
I just thought that it didn't seem very fair that she didn't even have to try out for varsity.
How do you feel about Addie and her skills?
I feel that maybe, I think she's a very talented player, but she should have to try out like everyone else does.
Is Bobby an important person to you?
He is very kind to me, I would say yes.
Why did you go back inside?
I went to grab my phone because if my parents would have called me and I didn't answer, they might get angry.
When you were inside, who or what did you see?
At the top of the stairs, there was someone in a red and black bureau jacket, but that could have been anybody. Everyone from bureau was wearing their own high school merch.
What time was it when you went back inside?
It was a little bit after 8.
Thank you, Your Honor. That will be all.
You may step down. Both the prosecution and the defense have now rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their final arguments. Please remember, what the attorneys say is not evidence. However, do listen closely. They are intended to aid you in understanding the case. Prosecution, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor, my name is Quinn McLaughlin and I will present the opening statement for the prosecution. You have heard the testimony of the victim, Addison Anderson, who explained how the defendant acted suspicious from the beginning. The details she provided made it clear that after she found out she had been drugged, only one person could have possibly been responsible. You have heard the testimony of Dakota Sherman, who testified that the defendant had an unusual change of behavior, as well as the fact that he was inside the house alone while the other people were watching Addie play basketball. You have also heard the testimony of Leslie Shin, who spoke of the draft email containing suspicious content written by the defendant. She also testified that the defendant entered a Google search for rohypnol effects short long term on the defendant's smartphone. This overwhelming evidence against the defendant proves far beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is indeed guilty of fourth-degree assault, causing another person to ingest a controlled substance, and harassment. In retribution for the harassment and humiliation Addison Anderson has experienced, I ask you to find the defendant, Bobby Dosa, guilty on all counts. Thank you, Your Honor.
Defense, you may proceed with your closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, my name is Danielle Schmody, and I will present the closing statement for my client, Bobby Dosa. You have heard from our 3 witnesses that will prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, my client is innocent. First, you heard Bobby's testimony, showing you that he left the party before the rohypnol was put into Miss Anderson's drink. He would never taint his reputation by committing a crime of this nature, even if she was from the rival team. Next, you heard from Lane Juarez, an emergency room physician, who told you that Miss Anderson consumed the rohypnol anywhere between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock that night, after Bobby left the party. Miss Anderson, also Lane told you that those who consume rohypnol, Miss Anderson in this case, usually cannot remember what they said or did after they ingested it. Finally, you heard Emerson Kanan's testimony. She proved that Bobby is innocent by telling you that Bobby had left her drink, She proved that Bobby is innocent by telling you that Bobby had gone outside when she witnessed Miss Sherman lingering by the couch, around where Miss Anderson had left her drink. In addition, the prosecution's witnesses' affidavits were riddled with holes. First of all, Miss Anderson claimed in her affidavit that when she came out of the bathroom, Miss Sherman handed her her drink. But Miss Sherman described that Miss Anderson never came back for it. Never did Miss Sherman mention the spilling of the soda when she offered to clean it up. Also, Your Honor, if so much responsibility was resting on Miss Anderson's shoulders before the big game, why wouldn't she respect her coach and take responsibility and take it easy? Why was she staying up as late as she did the night before the biggest game of the season? Finally, if Miss Sherman and her mother knew the dangers of holding possession of Rohypnol, which is illegal in the United States, why wouldn't she dispose of it? We all know Bobby was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He would never hurt his reputation as the president of the pep squad by committing a crime. Emerson also told you that Bobby is a young man that isn't afraid to stand up for those who are mistreated, and has also aspired to bring his fellow classmates excitement and joy. My client has shown admirable ethics and care for his community in the past. Because of this evidence and testimony, Bobby is, beyond a reasonable doubt, not guilty. In conclusion, Your Honor, it would have been impossible for Bobby to have caused Miss Anderson any harm, and we respectfully request that you find my client, Bobby Dosa, not guilty on all counts. Thank you, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, you have now heard all of the testimony concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine the facts. You and you alone are the judges of the fact. Once you decide what facts the evidence proves, you must then apply the law as I give it to you to these facts as you find them. The law states for charge number 1 of causing another person to ingest a controlled substance, a person commits the crime of causing another person to ingest a controlled substance if the person knowingly or intentionally causes the other person to ingest, other than by administering or dispensing, a controlled substance or a controlled substance analog without consent of another person. A person who violates this subsection is guilty of a Class B felony. For charge number 2, assault in the 4th degree, a person commits assault in the 4th degree if the person A, intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly causes physical injury to another, or B, with criminal negligence causes physical injury to another by means of a deadly weapon. Assault in the 4th degree is a Class A misdemeanor. For charge number 3 of harassment, a person commits the crime of harassment if the person intentionally harasses or annoys another person by A, subjecting such other person to offensive physical contact, or B, publicly insulting such other person by abusive words or gestures in a manner intended and likely to provoke a violent response. Harassment is a Class B misdemeanor. In just a moment, the bailiff will take you out to the jury room to consider your verdict. One of the first things you will want to do is select a foreperson that will preside over your deliberations the way that a chairperson does at a meeting. It will be the foreperson's duty to sign the verdict form when you have agreed on the verdict. Whatever verdict you render must be unanimous. That is, each and every person must agree on the same verdict. The bailiff will now escort you to the deliberation room. All rise. You may sit. I call a 5-minute recess while the jury deliberates. Have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
What say you?
We, the jury, in the case of the State of Oregon versus Bobby Dosa, find the defendant not guilty of all charges.
Thank you, jury, for your service today. Court is adjourned.